Hello, you're watching the Top 5 on PressTV. The U.S. officially has relocated its embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, Quds. President Donald Trump addressed the opening ceremony in a video message hailing the controversial move.
Today we officially opened the United States Embassy in Jerusalem. Congratulations. It's been a long time coming.
A delegation from the White House attended the inauguration. It included Trump's daughter, Ivanka, her husband, Jared Kushner, as well as Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin. Envoys from almost all European countries had been invited but decided to boycott the event. Speaking at the ceremony, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu praised Trump's decision.
Today, the embassy of the most powerful nation on earth, our greatest ally, the United States of America. Today, its embassy opened here. We are in Jerusalem, and we are here to stay.
Netanyahu also told the gathering that the U.S. president had made history with his move. Last year, Trump declared Jerusalem Al-Quds as Israel's capital and pledged to move the U.S. embassy there. Israel's claim on Jerusalem Al-Quds is now recognized internationally. Despite this, the regime has built 200,000 settler units in and around the city. The constructions are also considered illegal under international law. Now to discuss that more, we have with us Jason Unruhe, political commentator, joining us live from Ontario. Thank you very much, Mr. Unruhe, as always, for joining us. Now, we heard Benjamin Netanyahu insisting that they are in Jerusalem and they are there to stay. And of course, we've also heard international calls condemning the move from Donald Trump. What do you think will be next?
Well, frankly, this is a tremendous insult to the Palestinian people. I think that what we're seeing is a great deal, a growing resistance against the crimes that Israel is committing against Palestine. And I think that the world sees that. I think the United States and Israel sees that as well. To what rate it's growing, I don't know, or what that could mean in the future. But there is a growing resistance to the crimes of the Israeli regime. And I think that the decision by the United States, I don't think this is just something that Trump decided, but something that the United States in general decided to do was to move the embassy there in order to entrench the position of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, despite the fact that it is illegal. I think this is a move by the United States to bring some more officialdom to the illegal occupation. Now that the U.S. has recognized it, this gives the position within Jerusalem a much more official flair to it. It gives it a veneer of being something that is right and legitimate. Although this is not true, this is certainly the attempt by the United States. And this comes at a time when the U.S. has already failed to capture Syria. This comes at a time when the U.S. is trying to sabotage the JCPOA agreement. I think this is a political move on the part of the United States to reinforce the power that has been waning in the Middle East, that they've traditionally held a lot of power over. And I think this is a way of trying to bring it back. They're trying to shore up the defenses that they already have by reinforcing this position within Israel against Palestine, one of the strongholds of U.S. power inside the region. And this was all timed on a day to make it as much of an insult as possible to the Palestinian people by putting it on the great sorrow. I forget the exact term for the day.
The Nakba Day.
Nakba, yes. I think that this was all timed perfectly to not just harm the dignity of Palestinians by placing it in this particular occasion, but to do it at this time to add much more of an insult, as if the killings of Palestinians protesting this, I believe it was a dozen or so yesterday, who died simply standing up to Israeli sniper fire and other forms of oppression, including poisonous gases, many of which are actually illegal that they were using. So I think that this move by the United States is possibly symbolically one of the most inhumane that they've ever carried out. Many of their actions, their imperialist conquests, are inhumane, but I think as a symbol of inhumanity, as a symbol for the contempt that they have for people who have suffered around the world, in this case, particularly Palestinians, this move is possibly one of the worst.
Thank you very much, Mr. Unruhe. Just as you mentioned, from a symbolic point of view, this particular day was chosen for opening the U.S. Embassy. On the other hand, we've also seen that the United States does not seem to be held accountable at all, especially when it comes to Israel. We've seen several UNSC resolutions against Israel being vetoed by the United States, and also this move from Trump recognizing Jerusalem al-Quds as the Israeli capital was also, well, it had the same fate in the UNSC. Do you think that there is any way that the United States can be held accountable for the way it is allowing Israel to move ahead with its atrocities against Palestinians?
Well, that's a very big question. The United States has always claimed to be a champion of human rights and democracy, yet they've always ruled by the barrel of a gun, by the principle that might makes right. And as long as they are a hegemonic military power in the world, frankly, there's not really much that the world can do to try to stop them. There's not really much that they can do to hurt the United States. They wield so much power militarily and economically. As it is right now, we're seeing many countries beginning to rise up to challenge U.S. power in one way or another. That is particularly getting rid of the U.S. petrodollar. Iran chose to switch to the euro. China has dropped the U.S. dollar in many fields, and in other countries, particularly Russia, they've decided to begin trading in a combination of each other's currencies, etc. There is no one major thing that the world could do to punish the United States for its inhumane actions against the Palestinian people. But I believe collectively the world, through smaller actions combined, to adding up in totality some kind of harm that they could do to the United States. I think that a lot of countries might want to consider leaving the United Nations and forming their own version of that organization. Well, what good is a UN resolution against Israel if it's never going to be enforced? There's no point of having a system of law if there's no way to actually enforce those laws. It just makes the whole thing an exercise in futility. But we're in this situation because the United States is such a hegemonic power militarily and economically. It would take a concerted effort by many countries around the world who would be willing to harm themselves economically by trying to cut some kind of ties with the United States economically, maybe a small sacrifice by multiple nations.
I'm very sorry, but we're running out of time. Thank you very much for your insights. Mr. Jason Unruhe, political commentator from Ontario.